Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Want to talk with you about my breakdown, my kind of analysis of the 2016 GOP field. I'll talk about them kind of one by one, and I'd be curious when we go to the phones to kind of get your reactions to my assessment of the GOP field. Just a couple of quick items before we jump into that. You know that fake interpreter, that Marcel Marceau imitator, that mime that was signing for the president and for all the other speakers at the Mandela funeral? Total fake. His stuff didn't make any sense. He was making it up. He was just wildly gesticulating. He's interviewed, says, I saw angels. I was overwhelmed and all that kind of stuff. Then he admitted he's schizophrenic. And now we find out today that he had faced charges in the past of murder, rape, and kidnapping. And here he is standing 3 feet from the president of the United States with no protection. This guy was crazy. He's a lunatic. And the only reason he didn't actually face charges on murder, rape, and kidnapping is because he was found mentally unfit to stand trial. All you got to say to that is yikes. Also, last week, here's your catastrophic global warming alert for the day. Over 2,000 cold and snow records were set in the U.S. this past week. 2,000 cold and snow records set in the United States in 1 week. They had snow in Cairo, Egypt today for the first time in 112 years. Snow in Cairo, Egypt, first time in 112 years. The biggest snow in Jerusalem since 1953. That's 60 years. That is your catastrophic global warming alert for the day. Now, let's turn our attention to, this is just me speaking as one evangelical conservative. I'm not speaking for anybody else, just other than myself. This is my own take, my own observations about the 2016 field. And I want to try to work through this fairly quickly, see if I can get all my observations squeezed into this one segment. Now, I think speaking as evangelicals, one of the things we are looking for is somebody who is strong in their Christian faith. That's like a non-negotiable for us. We believe, like John Jay, the first Supreme Court Justice of the United States, said that it is our duty and privilege to prefer Christians for our rulers. God in his providence has given us the freedom to choose our rulers, and duty as well as personal interest dictates that we should prefer Christians for our rulers. That's John Jay, first Supreme Court Justice of the United States. So we're going to prefer somebody who is strong in their Christian faith. And in my judgment, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Rick Perry, Mike Huckabee, Paul Ryan, Marco Rubio, Rick Santorum, all of them clear that threshold. Chris Christie, I think there's questions about Chris Christie and the depth of his faith. I know he is practicing to one degree or another, but he's made it very clear that he does not allow his Christian faith to have any impact on his view of homosexual conduct. So he has that in a completely separate category. So he's not someone who is strong in his Christian faith. You cannot be strong in your Christian faith and embrace homosexuality, homosexual marriage, or the homosexual agenda. It's simply not possible. If you do, you're weak in your faith. There's some kind of major flaw, deficiency, some lacuna in your faith. So these guys all passed that first test except for Chris Christie. So I think Chris Christie for evangelicals is just out on grounds of lack of spiritual intensity, if nothing else. I think the rest of the field is solid on not only on faith, but on the issues of the sanctity of human life. I think you got to give Governor Huckabee and Governor Perry an edge here because they have been able to use executive power to advance the cause of protecting the unborn. And I think Governor Perry is light years beyond everyone, even including Governor Huckabee, who was great as a governor on the life issue. But Governor Perry has been a real champion as an executive on behalf of the unborn. All of these men appear to be strong on the issue of natural marriage. Again, I would put Rick Perry and Mike Huckabee out in the front of the field on the issue of the sanctity of marriage. Governor Huckabee has been unapologetic and forthright about his support of natural marriage. Governor Perry had a big celebration when they passed the marriage amendment in the state of Texas. He's been an unwavering and unbending defender of the family. Now, Ted Cruz, frankly, disappointed me a little bit on this. He was asked on a national interview about his view of marriage, and he basically deflected attention from that. He said, well, that's an issue for the states to decide. He says, I believe in natural marriage, but that's really for the states to decide. Now, we had an opportunity there to do a Rick Santorum thing and give a ringing defense of natural marriage and its impact on the family and children, and he passed on the opportunity to do that. So I personally was disappointed that Mike Cruz passed on that opportunity. Now, you look at the rest of the field, start breaking it down. So you've got all these guys kind of clear the threshold of faith. They clear the threshold on marriage. They clear the threshold on the sanctity of life. So now we start looking at other issues. Now I think Paul Ryan is out. Paul Ryan's gone because he sponsored this budget-busting bill with one of the most liberal senators on the face of the earth, Patty Murray. So he's out of here. Evangelicals don't like that. Conservatives don't like that. I think he saw it as his ticket to the White House, prove his ability to cross the aisle, be a bipartisan leader, the John McCain stuff. Just shot himself right in the kneecap on that one. So Paul Ryan, I think, is out for evangelicals and conservatives. Now, Senator Santorum, I really like Senator Santorum. I was a big supporter of his, 2008, 2012. He's just not going to be able to generate the momentum. I don't have any objection to Rick Santorum. I just don't think he's going to be able to generate the momentum that you're going to need to win the presidency. Now, Governor Huckabee is obviously a very attractive candidate to evangelicals. He's been unapologetic about his faith. He's been very strong on the issue of the sanctity of marriage, the sanctity of life. You know, and he can say with complete credibility, he was an evangelical pastor. He can say to us, I do not come to you, I come from you. And he can say that with credibility and with authority. He's got a very appealing presence. He's articulate. He's very likable. Even his political foes feel an affection for him. Nobody has a bad word to say about Governor Huckabee, even those that disagree with him politically. But I think the concerns that evangelicals are going to have, and now that Governor Huckabee is in the race, these are questions he's going to be asked and is going to need to answer. Early support for Common Core. He was an early supporter of Common Core. Now he's tried to distance himself. That's when I knew he was running for the White House. I knew that when last Saturday he tried to get as far away from Common Core as he possibly could, because that is toxic to the evangelical base. But he's also got other, how effective that renunciation was, I don't know. I mean, basically what I heard Governor Huckabee say, I don't like this Common Core, I like that Common Core, claiming it had morphed into something he did not recognize. And that's going to be up to the grassroots to decide how effective that renunciation was. Now, he also has other problems from his days in Arkansas on taxes. He has a kind of a record and a reputation of supporting tax increases. I think he has some problems in welfare, sponsoring, promoting growth in government programs, this involuntary transfer of wealth. And he's got some challenges on immigration. He was fairly lax on the whole immigration issue. And he may have changed his views on these things, but those are questions that he's going to need to answer. Now, Ted Cruz is obviously running for the presidency. By the way, he's got a coloring book out there that is selling like hotcakes. It's like a bestseller coloring book of Ted Cruz. You know, and I knew he was running for the presidency for sure when he went to the Mandela funeral. That was an opportunity for him to look presidential. Again, I expressed my reservations about the way he responded to a question on a natural marriage. But he's clearly a principled candidate. He's willing to take the slings and arrows to move us back to some semblance of fiscal sanity. He's articulate. You're never going to have to worry about a Rick Perry oops moment with him. He's got smoothness. He has the ability to out-debate any political opponent, and that's enormously attractive to evangelicals. We know we are eager for a champion of conservative values who can articulate those values and defend them against all comers, and Ted Cruz can do that. Now, Rand Paul, the great advantage that Rand Paul has is his determination to uphold the Constitution, and I believe he absolutely means it. That's the thing I love about Rand Paul. He is dedicated to uphold the Constitution, to limit the size of government to its constitutionally authorized powers, and to restrain out of control government spending and regulation. And he and Rick Perry, I think, are the champions. They're the leaders in this regard. You know, Rick Perry is the only candidate I've ever heard who said, you send me to Washington, I'm going to take a wrecking ball to that place. That was his words. I'm going to take a wrecking ball to Washington, D.C. So I think Rand Paul and Governor Perry are going to be leaders of the pack in restraining the growth of the federal government. I think both Rand Paul and Governor Perry would wield the veto pen with relish, and that's what we're going to need. You know, we're going to need a president who will veto a budget that doesn't balance. Send me something that balances, or you're going to have to get 67 votes to pass it over my veto. Now, I think Rand Paul's liability is his tendency toward libertarianism rather than conservatism. I've got grave concerns about his desire to get the government out of the recognition of marriage. I think that's very dangerous. It creates an unstable environment for children. It's going to create huge complications in matters of custody in cases of divorce. So that is problematic, I think, for evangelicals. His openness to legalizing marijuana, I think that's also problematic for me. I'm deeply concerned about the health of our young. We've seen in Colorado, when you legalize marijuana, drug use, especially marijuana use among teenagers, just skyrockets. And we saw in the last month alone, 32% of Colorado teenagers smoked marijuana. So that is a genuine concern, I think, for me, and I think a lot of evangelicals share that similar concern. Now, Rick Perry's clearly running for the presidency. He's been coy about it when asked directly about it, but he's made visits to South Carolina. He's made visits to Iowa. He's been traveling all over the country touting the economic successes of Texas. Now, in the 2012 campaign, he admitted that he goofed on the Gardasil mandate. He repented of that, got his mind right on that. He really stumbled on the issue of immigration, saying if you're for a secure border, you lack compassion. That pretty much killed him right there. And then that oops moment. And that oops moment, it's a shallow thing, but it's going to be really tough for him to overcome. Now, I've seen him in a lot of different interview settings, and I've always seen him to be articulate and clear in defending conservative values. So that was just a bad moment. That brain freeze was a bad moment. He was recovering from back surgery. He had to take some pain medication just to be able to stand for 2 hours in one place, and that obviously is going to affect anybody's mental acuity. But the media is going to be all over him. They're going to pounce on any verbal miscue he makes and magnify them. And you're going to have evangelicals in a public debate. They're going to be gripping the edge of their chair in anxiety, just hoping he doesn't have a verbal gaffe in the middle of a debate. So that may be a shallow thing, but I think it's going to be something that he's going to need to overcome. And I think Governor Perry is going to need to convince Americans that his approach to immigration is border security first, build defense first. Rand Paul's got a similar problem. He's in favor of amnesty after the border is secure. I think that's going to be a problem for him. Mike Huckabee has got problems on immigration. I think he could go a long way towards addressing that if he came out with a strong border security first, build defense first as an immigration policy. Now, I think the great advantage that Governor Perry has over the four most attractive candidates in the field, evangelicals, that's Governor Perry, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Mike Huckabee. He has over a decade of effective executive experience. So he's proven that he knows how to use the powers of the executive office to promote sound economic and social policies. He's been there. He has done that. He's earned a lot of street cred when it comes to that. And that's a huge electoral plus. We're looking at the chaos that's been created by a president who came into office completely inept and with no executive experience whatsoever. There's a mess here. It's going to take a lion of a man to clean up. So bottom line in all of this, in this first furlong of the race, I would see Ted Cruz as the front runner. I'd see Rick Perry ought to be the front runner, but because of his oops moment, he's not. Rand Paul, I would see in third place, running right behind Rick Perry. Mike Huckabee in fourth, and they will be jockeying for position until June of 2016. Focal Point, AFR Talk, back in 2.